Hello, and welcome aboard the Dream Harrier, the ship that flies through gaming space. I'm its captain, Snake Man. We are at the end, the finale, of 428 Shibuya Scramble. I know I said that last weekend, and then it turned out the last segment was like way longer than any part of the game had ever been. And we had to cut off, and then we had internet issues. But now I think it's time we can finally see the finale of 428. Hello, Kajarden. Hello, Cameron. Hello, Kurislachi. I'm so sorry that you are stuck in the Woody Poco zone, Kajarden. We can finally punch Alphard. Maybe. And, Cameron, I commend you for coming in at the last episode. This has been a wild ride. I think my controller already doesn't work. Oh, I know why it doesn't work. This controller has Switch mode and Xbox X input mode, and it was in Switch input mode because that's how I use it on the Mister. I don't mean I'm gonna have to reboot the game because this game is stupid, isn't it? Yep. 1 second. This game has really questionable controller support. And you might ask, why don't you just play on the keyboard? It's a visual novel. The controls are very strange. Like F2 is a button, which is the equivalent of like the Y button on an Xbox pad, the top button. You have to use F2 on the keyboard. So it's very questionable. There is a lot, and I understand because it's the finale. You want to have that. So, let me give a quick recap of the last hour of the game, in-game time. We'll start at 1800. At 1800, they are currently at Endo Electronics. They were just contacted by who they believe is Alphard and told to bring oh my god, what's her name? I remember Maria. What's Hitomi. I almost wanted to say Hinaka. Hitomi. To bring Hitomi to the scramble to make a exchange. Minorikawa was rushing to the SOS brigade. I call him the SOS brigade, the SOS gang. He got help by his wonderful taxi driver, who turned out to be the teacher of a lot of the SOS members, and ended up getting them to kind of believe in their leader and have the leader. And then Haruhi saved Hitomi, yeah. She dropkicked Alphard in the face and then saved Hitomi. Yeah, Minorikawa got his interview, but also is hanging around the SOS, as Achi has came back to the SOS in order to plead for help in the current ongoing operation, which is to capture Alphard and save Hitomi and Maria. We've been able to play as Jack and Tatano. And Jack found out an awful thing. I forget where he finds it. Yeah, he finds the photo in Maria's bag, and it is of the real Kanan. And it turns out that the Kanan that everyone had been working with throughout the entire game is not the real Kanan, and is in fact Alphard, the grand strategist behind all of this. So they had a confrontation in the scramble with a fake Alphard who threatened to spread the virus. But that he got caught by Detective Kano and forced to give up the password to enter the laboratory. But something happened. There's a bomb. And we are currently dealing with the bomb. So let us take care of that bomb. He carried the bomb more tightly to his chest, huddling over it. "What are you doing? Come with us, hurry!" screamed Kano. So he could jump to Kano. I think it would get him out of to be continued, not to be a continued, get him out of keep out. But let's see how this goes from Achi's point of view. "I don't know how powerful this bomb is, but please, God, let my body be enough to protect the people of Shibuya and to protect Hitomi." Achi squeezed his eyes tightly shut. "I'm sorry, Suzune. Looks like I won't be able to keep visiting you in the hospital anymore. You'll forgive me though, right? I stuck it through to the end, just like you told me to. I didn't call it quits partway through. And so, whatever you do, you can't let that disease beat you. Don't you dare let it beat you." Achi drew a deep breath as he finished his solitary little prayer. He couldn't have more than a few seconds left to go. Oh, you have no idea the tonal whiplash this game has. I mean, it's going to be more serious because we're in the finale, but the way we're going to solve this bomb problem is that a van crashed nearby with a broken dry ice machine, causing the drivers of the van to have oxygen deprivation. We've known about this dry ice machine for a long time. And it's all come to this. I wouldn't say half was comedy, but there's a lot of comedy. Achi. It was Hitomi. He was glad that her voice was the last thing in this world he'd ever hear. Or so he thought. "Achi, bring the bomb over here." That wasn't Hitomi's voice. Achi opened his eyes and saw Kano racing toward him, pushing some big, weird piece of machinery. The detective flipped open the machine's cover to reveal a huge mound of dry ice. "Stick it in there! Flash freezing the timer ought to stop it." Achi did as he was told, shoving the attaché case into the dry ice. Kano helped him pile more dry ice on top of it. "Let's hope that's enough," Kano exclaimed. He looked like a man desperate for a miracle. They could see the timer displayed through a gap in the frozen hydrogen, still counting down. 4, 3, 2... Was this not going to work? Achi and Kano held their breaths. Ooh, we got a to be continued. So to be continued means that we have to stop playing them. Actually, Kano's also had to be continued when he brought over the dry ice machine. Yeah, I think it did. I could go back. I can't go back. Well, I can go here and then use the D-pad and then go back. Stick it in there. Yeah, display through a gap in the frozen hydrogen. Still counting down. Look, this translation has been a little questionable in some parts. It's okay. Everything's okay. So with Tatsuno out of the story, and these two to be continued, that leaves only Jack, who is just arriving at the lab in order to try to thwart the real Alphard. Finally, the Okoshi Pharmaceutical Laboratory came into view. There were two people standing outside the front gate. It was Tatsuno and the girl who was pretending to be Kanan. Each had a gun drawn on the other. Somehow Stanley had made it in time. I'm so glad Tatsuno is still alive. As much as I hated him in the beginning of the story, like, he has this nice redemption. He pulled his car up alongside them and reached down into the gun sleeve concealed beside his seat. He pulled out a .44 caliber Desert Eagle, one of the most powerful semi-automatic handguns in the world. A semi-automatic handgun designed by Minnesota-based Magnum Research Incorporated and manufactured by Israeli Weapon Industries. There are various models chambered for different rounds. The largest, the .5 Action Express, is exceptionally powerful by semi-automatic handgun standards. There you go, you learned about a Deagle. His orders were to apprehend Alphard. The smaller Glock in his shoulder holster might be better suited to that end. Even so, he opted for the Desert Eagle, because when else do you get to use the sick-ass Deagle? Getting out of the car, he started pacing towards the young woman. Stanley. Tatsuno glanced over at him, his face pale. Stanley gave a silent nod in reply. He could see the hint of a smile on the girl's face. Probably a smile of overconfidence. Well, her brazenness would get her no further. I got in touch with the others, Stanley said. Told them to turn off Hitomi Isawa's cell phone. He could see her eyes react. I imagine that by now, they've also managed to deal with the bomb you've planted on your decoy. The young woman remained silent. And of course, they've managed to bypass the lock inside the lab. You know what this means. Your little plan has failed, completely. Stanley could see the girl's stare sharpen. He'd chased Alphard all around the world only to arrive here, at last, in this little island nation. Yeah, but he's gotta talk shit on her. It had been a long, long journey. And he'd spent a long time suffering. Now both the journey and the suffering would be over. Oh my god, FMV Stanley. We meet at last, Alphard. And that is Stanley's story. So Stanley and Tatsuno are out of the picture. Which is interesting because they're the only characters at the lab that are dealing with Alphard. Oh my god, it all comes down to this. Everything, all the branches, you can see them. They're all converging. They're converging on the epilogue. We did it. If I knew it was that simple, we could have probably done it last night. Not last night, but the when we got to 4 a.m. or whatever. Oh well, maybe the epilogue is huge. Kanan's friend. Epilogue. Yeah, that's what I was hoping Plombo would tell me. She felt a hand firmly clutching her own as she hazily returned to consciousness. This is Maria? This is going to be from Maria's viewpoint? Epilogue is the length of the entirety of Umineko. I'm so glad this game is not Umineko length, but we took about 40 to 50 hours on this. This hand. Who is it? My father's? Maria's eyelids slowly drifted open. Maria, you're all right now. Her father was indeed beside her, holding her hand. A surprising warmth radiated from his slender, bony palm. Dad? She was lying on a sofa. She craned her neck to look around, still trying to process what was going on. There were several monitors set up around the room. Where are we? At my laboratory. You were infected with a virus. But I've given you the antiviral. You don't have anything to worry about. He squeezed Maria's hand even more tightly. That hurts. Ah, right, sorry. Osawa eased up the pressure on his daughter's hand. But he didn't let go entirely. This feels so strange, Maria muttered, staring up at the ceiling. I wonder why. What does? Oh, by the way, Osawa was a previous playable character, as well as Maria here. Having you hold my hand. I used to hold your hand like this when we'd go on walks together, when you were little. I doubt you remember that, though. Maria considered. It was true, she didn't have any clear memory of her father holding her hand like this. And yet the touch of her father's palm felt distantly familiar. Gently, she squeezed back. It's been a while, hasn't it? She said. I mean, me looking you in the eye while I'm talking to you. That's only because I didn't look you in the eye. Osawa hung his head. I'm so sorry, he said. Please, forgive me. I never meant to hurt you like I did. Wait, hold on. Maria was taken aback. I don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean, hurt me? Back on that rainy day. Osawa told Maria about the day she'd run away from home. About how he'd known where she had gone, but hadn't gone to find her. About how he'd given in to his anger and struck her once she came back home. When he'd finished, he hung his head once more. I'm so sorry. I've been such a terrible father. Maria cracked an impish smile. Oh yeah, I guess that did happen. Osawa frowned. You know, she said, I'd totally forgotten about that. Until you mentioned it just now, I mean. No, I can't believe that, Osawa replied. The way I hurt you, He sounded so disappointed in himself. Dad, it's not like I can let myself dwell on each and every detail of my childhood. I mean, in the 19 or so years I've been alive, I've been hurt in lots of different ways. A child experienced so much more than what her parents knew. That was what growing up was all about. It was a happy thing, but also a little bit sad. Osawa was visibly grappling with his feelings. I see, he said. I guess you have gone through much pain. Well, yeah, but there have been more things that were fun and happy. I see. It's a sum of all those things that have made me who I am today. So please, don't worry so much about the past. I see. Dad? You keep saying, I see. Stop it. Sorry. It's just... This is all so difficult to say. Osawa was trying and failing to hold back his tears. Maria wasn't quite sure what those tears were for, but she felt a prickle of embarrassment. Shyly, she looked away, and her eyes alighted on one of the monitors. The screen showed a view from outside the lab. Who are those people? She asked, pointing. Osawa looked, and his eyes widened in shock. 3 people with guns were facing off with one another. Maria recognized one of them. Tatano, the man with the cane. Why are those 2 pointing guns at your friend? Oh, that's Osawa. Osawa's voice was shaking. My friend? What do you mean? The one you met when we went to the Middle East. You know, Kanan. Osawa switched the monitor to show a different camera angle. A close-up of the young woman's face appeared on screen. Maria was at a loss for words. That certainly wasn't Kanan. It wasn't the girl who'd come to tell Maria that Hitomi was going to be kidnapped. Kanan's friend. It was the girl who'd come to tell Maria that... Okay, so this covers up that hole I was wondering about fake Alphard, or sorry, fake Kanan. Like, who told Maria about the kidnapping? And it turns out it was here. Kanan's friend. It was the girl who'd come to tell Maria that Hitomi was going to be kidnapped. Kanan's friend. It had happened 3 days earlier. Yeah. While Maria was on her way home from campus, a girl approached her, telling her she was a friend of Kanan. Kanan asked me to pass along a message, she said. Then she showed Maria a video recording. The video quality was quite poor, and the voice indistinct. There's a terrorist who's after the antiviral agent your father is developing. Maria listened in shock as the message continued. The terrorist plan was already in motion, and Hitomi had been infected with a killer virus. Your father used the antiviral to save Hitomi. But the terrorist planned on that. I'll spare you the details, but there's a way to extract the antiviral from Hitomi's blood. Stealing the drug from the laboratory directly is too problematic. The terrorist intends to get it directly from your sister. Hitomi is certain to be kidnapped sometime in the next few days. And so I have something to ask you. I'd like you to get kidnapped in her place. Since you're twins, it should be possible for you to trade places without the kidnappers realizing it. I gave the girl who's passing along this message a necklace outfitted with a small GPS beacon. Make sure you wear the necklace. Switch it on and it'll allow me to keep tabs on your location. I promise I'll come and rescue you. Please, help me. This is the only way we can keep the antiviral and Hitomi safe. The video ended and the girl handed Maria a necklace with an ornate pendant and showed her the hidden switch on the back. Kanan's coming to Japan? Maria asked. She's already here. She's ready to risk her life for this mission. Risk her life? Maria started uneasily. So this terrorist who's after the antiviral drug, is it Alphard? The girl looked shocked. You know about Alphard? Kanan told me that taking down Alphard is her purpose in life. But Alphard has ties to the CIA, so it's hard for Kanan to get any good leads. That's true. Which reminds me, you should have this. Okay, so this photo, this memory, was not of Maria and Kanan, but Maria and, quote, Kanan's friend, unquote. The girl held out a photograph. This man is dangerous. Stay away from him. He's an ally of Alphard. Maria did her best to burn the man's image into her mind. It was one of the few memories she was able to recall while she had amnesia. Alright, the girl said. Oh, alright, the girl said. I've passed along everything Kanan wanted me to tell you. What you do next is up to you. So, wait, what the heck has been going on while I've been asleep? Osawa recoiled from the ferocity on his daughter's face. That Kanan girl thought of a way to save you. He went on to explain the plan to get the antiviral out of the locked-down laboratory. Once again, Maria stared at the monitor. As she eyed Kanan's friend, another memory from before she'd blacked out drifted to the surface. Suddenly, it dawned on Maria what this girl was planning. She's pretending to be Kanan in order to get into the lab, she said, scowling at the image on the monitor. Osawa looked at the screen and then at his daughter's face. Well then, who in the world is she? Maria already had the answer. There was no doubt about it. That girl was Alphard. The instant she realized this, she knew they were in danger. If Alphard managed to infiltrate the lab, there was no way she'd be satisfied with simply getting her hands on the antiviral. She sowed ruin everywhere she went. Is something wrong? Osawa asked uneasily. Maria, what is it? Maria's mind was racing. She spoke her thoughts out loud. She's going to kill you, so the drug can't be recreated. No, that's not thorough enough. She's going to destroy this whole facility. But how? Vague possibilities tumbled through her mind, but she couldn't be sure what the terrorist might be planning. She gritted her teeth in frustration. Don't worry, Osawa said. I don't know who this girl is, but right now she's outside the lab. There's no way she can kill me or plant a bomb in here or anything. Yeah, I know. Maria gave a tiny nod, but something gnawed at the back of her mind. Make sure you wear the necklace. Yeah, it's possible the necklace isn't just a GPS device. Hurriedly, Maria took hold of the pendant that hung around her neck. As soon as she did, she felt a chill run up her spine. She went back over the details of Alphard's plan as her father had explained it. And then finally she understood. I've got it. Osawa straightened up. You've got what? I need to get out of here, where those three are. Don't be absurd. I have to go. Osawa peered closely at his daughter's face. Words weren't going to stop her, and as he realized that, his own face stiffened with determination. Alright, but I'm going with you. I can't let you rush into danger all by yourself. Thank you, Dad. Maria tried to get up from the sofa, but she was struck by a wave of vertigo and her knees buckled. Are you alright? Osawa caught her by the arm. This is probably a side effect of the antiviral. You shouldn't push yourself too hard, or too much. Maria looked up at her father's anxious face and shook her head. Don't worry, I'll be okay. Her body was weak with lethargy, her mind trapped in the disorientating haze. I can read. Every step was a monumental effort, but she clenched her jaw and forced herself onward, making her way down the laboratory hallway. A whirlwind of anger and sadness spurred her onward. Alphard was masquerading as Kanan. The cruel truth was all too clear. The terrorists would have never been able to get away with the deception if Kanan were still alive. Which means that Kanan must be... Maria fought to hold back her tears. It was too early to cry just yet. That could wait until she put a stop to Alphard's plan. Using her rage to suppress her sorrow, she shoved open the door in front of her. That isn't Kanan. Maria's voice exploded into the silence of the standoff. I doubt we're getting better testimony than that, Stanley said, his gun still at the ready. There's no talking your way out of things this time. The expression of Offard's face didn't change. She stood still, a mannequin without a soul. What did you do to Kanan? Maria demanded, marching unsteadily towards the terrorist. Maria, stay back, Osawa exclaimed. She ignored him. Hey, don't get any closer, Tatsuno barked. He looked exhausted, on the verge of collapse. Answer me, Maria cried, still advancing. What happened to Kanan? But still, Offard said nothing. Stanley, too, began edging toward her. It doesn't matter what you ask, he said. She won't tell you anything. Bit by bit, he inched closer. He was going to try and take her down. Let me turn your question around, Alphard said abruptly. What do you think? Maria paused, confused. What do I think about what? What do you think happened to Kanan? The corners of her lips twisted up, shaping a mirthless smile. You killed her, didn't you? Maria's words came out as a whisper. What was that? I couldn't quite hear you. You killed Kanan, didn't you? This time Maria cried out with biting fury. Alphard snickered. She's provoking me, Maria thought, forcing herself to swallow her rage. She couldn't let herself get caught up in Alphard's game, or her anger would spill out of control. Why are you laughing? By force of will, Maria made her voice firm and steady. Because I'm guessing you weren't expecting me to show up here. Alphard raised an eyebrow ever so slightly. This thing here, it's a bomb, isn't it? Maria held out the necklace. What? Stanley furrowed his brow. Ah, of course. Even if we managed to catch you here, you'd still be able to destroy the lab. Still, the smile remained on Alphard's face. She seemed to enjoy watching the others figure out her intentions. But you can't trigger the bomb with me standing so close, can you? Maria locked eyes with Alphard. Unless you're prepared to sacrifice yourself. She stood like an image of bravery, while on the inside her apprehension threatened to tear her apart. She could feel her heart thudding so furiously that she thought it might explode. Cold sweat trickled down her spine. Only her rage at Kanan's murder kept her from backing down. Go ahead and blow yourself up if that's what you want, she said. But you'll die with nothing. Your death will mean nothing. But not mine. My death will avenge Kanan's. Silence fell outside the laboratory gates. Stanley and Tatsuno stood frozen, their guns still trained on Alphard. Both men were ready to pull the trigger at the slightest provocation. Just how long had they been there, staring one another down? The passage of time seemed to slow, seconds drawn into hours. Osawa swallowed audibly. Finally, Alphard tossed her gun onto the pavement and held up both hands in surrender. Stanley wasted no time, springing forward to secure her. He gave her a thorough pat-down from behind. He removed a small device that looked like a detonator from one of her pockets. On your knees. Alphard did as she was told. Good. Now hands behind your head. Try anything funny and I will shoot. Without a word, Alphard placed her hands on the back of her head, fingers laced together. What are you playing at? Stanley growled disdainfully. Finally realized you can only push your luck so far? She responded with a faint snicker. It's not my policy to resist when things are hopeless. Her tone was detached, her intentions unreadable. Good. I'll make this easy. Stanley kept the barrel of his gun pointed at Alphard's head. This is for my brother. The words hung in his throat, unspoken. A surge of emotion coursed through him. Just a tiny bit more pressure from his index finger, and he could put a bullet right through Alphard's head. His long journey would finally reach its conclusion. But although he had wished for this moment more than anything, his finger did not move. If he pulled the trigger now, would that truly be the end? His mind reeled at the implications. Tatsuno watched Stanley closely, eventually letting out a tiny sigh of relief. They were in this together after all. Now they just needed to be careful not to let down their guard. He kept one eye on Alphard as he went to pick up the gun she discarded. But he was too late. The gun was gone. This is for Kanan. Maria had lunged forward, snatching up the gun. Maria, no! Osawa cried. What are you thinking? She ignored her father, taking aim at Alphard's forehead. Kanan's dead. And you're gonna pay. The smoldering rage she'd fought to hold back blazed up with renewed fury. Maria, Stanley said calmly, put down the gun. He had nothing but words to stop her. There was no telling what Alphard might do if he took his gun off her. What will this accomplish? He asked, keeping his tone as level as possible. Maria's face remained awash with anger. Maria, her father pleaded. Please don't do this. Tatsuno took a step forward. Go on, hand me the gun, he said. Stay back! Maria's arms trembled as she aimed the gun. Everyone stood frozen, not even daring to breathe. The slightest wrong move might bring disaster. The silence roared. I don't care, Alphard sneered. If you want to shoot, then shoot. You do want to avenge Kanan, don't you? Yes, I do. Maria tightened her grip on the gun. Memories of her friend drifted through her head. To Maria, born into peace, meeting Kanan had been like touching a world beyond her own. A far more complicated world. Kanan had blood on her hands from the time she was a little girl. A walking contradiction of cruelty and childishness. And yet, she had lived her life according to her own unshakable beliefs. Meeting her had made Maria think hard about her own identity. What did it mean to be Japanese? No, that wasn't the question. What did it mean to be Maria Osawa? That was the crux of it all. They had been able to find common ground, despite the differing ideals, because both possessed an unshakable sense of self. The tense equilibrium came crashing down as Maria let out a shout. This is for Kanan! She pulled the trigger, but her shot went wide, shattering the window of a nearby car. The sudden gunshot caught Stanley off guard. No! Alphard didn't miss her opening. She rolled swiftly across the pavement, drawing the small pistol she'd hidden in an ankle holster. You're pat down. You didn't do it right. Stanley, no! Maria hastily tried to aim for a second shot. Dad? Osawa collapsed at Maria's feet. Dad! Her father went limp. Stanley dived at Alphard. He grabbed hold of her right wrist, the one clutching the gun, and slammed her head down hard against the pavement. She made no attempt to resist. In a moment, he had subdued her. "Oh, I really like Osawa. Maria. You're not hurt, are you?" Osawa croaked feebly as his daughter gathered him up in her arms. "I'm fine. But Dad, your..." Blood was gushing through Osawa's shirt. Maria pressed her hand against the wound, but the bleeding wouldn't stop. "Look, just hurry. Get here as fast as you can." Tatsuno was on his cell phone calling for an ambulance. "I know there's a traffic jam. Just figure something out. Please." His voice was raged with desperation. "Dad, hang in there." Large tears streamed from Maria's eyes. So this is what it's like." Osawa lay with his head in his daughter's lap, struggling to rasp out his words. "My body just reacted before I had any time to think. I finally understand what a virus must feel like." His eyes were hollow. "I never told you and Hitomi, did I? About what started my fascination with virus research." "Dad, try not to talk right now." Maria squeezed her father's hand. Almost imperceptibly, he squeezed back. "It probably isn't a very interesting story," he said. "But I'd like for you both to hear it anyway." "I know. And we will. After this, I promise we will." Maria's words brought a contented smile to Osawa's face. "I'm glad. So glad." "It's alright, just don't talk right now." "This time, at least, I was there for you." Osawa slowly shut his eyes. "Dad?" Maria said, but her father didn't answer. "Dad, don't die. You can't die." The sound of an ambulance sirens wailed in the distance. Maria clutched her father's hand, trying to make her grip firm and reassuring, just as his had been for her back inside the laboratory. "Please, don't die." She repeated the words inwardly, over and over and over. Not Osawa. A black car of foreign make arrived at the laboratory and pulled up to the curb. Stanley's superior, Gordon, emerged from the back. A few of his men followed and promptly placed Alphard in handcuffs. "Well done," Gordon said. Stanley gave him a slight nod. "I'll be taking Alphard back to headquarters. You can finish up here." "Understood, sir." Gordon shoved Alphard into the back seat and slid in alongside her, and the car drove off. Who was that just now? Tatsuno asked Stanley. "My boss. Sorry, but we'll be taking Alphard into custody." "You will, huh?" Tatsuno frowned, but decided not to press the point. The ambulance arrived at last, and Osawa was loaded inside. Maria remained at his side, still weeping, still softly calling out to him. He could sense her there, though her voice sounded awfully far away. "Is this the end, hon?" He was vaguely aware that he was dying, but he was not afraid. At the far end of a hazy tunnel, he could still see Maria. My, she had grown. She had grown so very much. If he were an organism that multiplied by... I don't know, my internet. 1 second. What is the internet doing? If he were an organism that multiplied by dividing itself, he would die knowing that he had left his best selves behind. Even in death, he is still comparing himself to a virus. He had only one wish now. That Maria and Hitomi would go on to lead happy lives. Or like, you know, comparing himself to a microorganism or, you know, things that he doesn't understand humans, right? So this is like the best he can do. That Maria and Hitomi would go on to lead happy lives. His vision was growing steadily dim. Tiny motes of light flickered and wavered faintly before his eyes. It looked a lot like the very first time he had ever peered through a microscope. And that was enough for him. Unexpectedly, Maria's cell phone rang in Stanley's pocket. He meant to give it back to her, but the ambulance had already departed. Thank goodness that the necklace doesn't have a time bomb, right? That a bomb that like activates based on the sound. The phone continued to ring for some time, but eventually fell into a death-like silence. Was that the real Kanan calling? Who was it? 0002. Achi held his breath. He could no longer feel the seconds ticking by. The numbers on the display were changing more and more slowly. But still, he watched in fear. 002. It was impossible not to fixate on the countdown. 0002. 0002. 0002. Kano and Achi continued to stare at the timer. 0002. It had stopped. The timer had actually stopped. We did it! Achi dropped to his knees with a cry of triumph. The rest of Shibuya Scramble burst into tears. You're one luckless guy, you know that? Kano held his hand out. Achi grinned up at him. That makes two of us. The two clasped hands firmly, their handshake conveying more than any words could have. Achi. Oh, sorry, that was Susumu? I thought it was Hitomi. Achi. Susumu came rushing over. You did it, man. I knew you could do it. The two bumped fists. It weren't just me, Achi said. Could never have done it without you guys' help. Susumu smiled bashfully. Hey, Susumu? Take care of SOS for me. You got it. Susumu looked him squarely in the eye. Achi gave a little nod, and the two solemnly bumped fists again. Suddenly, there was a blinding flash. Achi spun around to see Chiaki standing there, beaming happily, her digital camera ready for another shot. Hey, everyone, gather up, Norikawa called out to Achi and his pals. You guys are the heroes of Shibuya. Photo time, everyone, Chiaki said. Get ready. The young men struck a pose together. Wait, her too. Minorikawa ushered Hitomi over to stand with Achi. Hitomi. Achi stared at her shyly. Hey, Plombo. I tried. How you doing? Well, we caught Alphard. We stopped the bomb. It was all thanks to Hitomi that he'd been able to do what he had done. Keeping Shibuya safe. Keeping his promise to Suzune. Hitomi had been his inspiration for it all. There were so many times he wanted to say, or so many things he wanted to say, but he couldn't get the right words out. Achi. Hitomi's cheeks were damp with tears. Hey now, little lady, Minorikawa called. No crying now. Come on, show us a smile. He struck a goofy pose besides Chiaki. Oh, I want to see the pose. At last, the smile returned to Hitomi's face. It really is the best. Hitomi looked up at Achi in confusion. It's alright. What were you up to? It's not like we had any choices left, so you kind of know how this played out. Your smile, he said. It's the best. I don't care what anyone else says. He spoke so earnestly that Hitomi couldn't help but smile even more. Okay, here we go, people. Look at Minorikawa, just still has blood, you know, like dried up blood on his mouth because of the time he got assaulted by the entire SOS gang. Oh, you've been playing the new Atelier game. Are you liking it? I have a friend that wants to get into the series because he thinks he'd like them, but he never does. And you know, Ryza keeps being cheap, and I keep telling him just buy Ryza because it's cheap and you can find out. I assume this one's very different though, like more action, which might be why he's interested in it. I didn't watch a trailer. I just know the girl has like potion heals, and that's kind of cool. Get your best faces on. Oh, at Minorikawa's signal, everyone let out a joyous victory cry. Yay! Come on, guys, Susumu shouted. Let's lift Achi up where everyone can see him. The members of SOS let out another roar. Huh? You don't gotta do that, guys. Hey, cut it out. But Achi had already been swallowed by the enthusiastic throng. Heave ho! Heave ho! Heave ho! There in the middle of the scramble, Achi was being hailed as a hero. Kano looked on with a satisfied smile. God, I hope Kano's girlfriend and father-in-law show up. Kano needs something after all this. Oh, it's open world. Okay. What they had achieved together was nothing less than a miracle. Yeah, there's so many Atelier games that I don't know. I can't keep them straight. I've never played one, as I was very adverse. Well, the original ones never came out, and then by the time they started coming out in English, I kind of was like adverse to RPGs. I'm starting to overcome that thanks to the stream, as we're playing like Emerald Dragon right now. And we played Saga 1 and Pokemon Black last year. Coincidences? Kano muttered to himself. No, that wasn't right. This was something different altogether. Fate. That's what it was. And not just one person's fate. The destinies of several people had collided, gathering momentum until coincidence became inevitability, and Shibuya was saved. The raucous crowd tossed Achi high into the air again and again. As a plainclothes detective, Kano would probably never be showered with adulation quite like that. Well, that was alright. A detective's duty was to ensure the safety of the people. I like that he's a plainclothes detective, because like, your suit is nice. That is a nice suit. You should call yourself Nice Suit Detective. He didn't put his life on the line so that he could be a hero. Just seeing all those smiles, that was good enough for him. Kano only needed the approval of one person, and that was Rumi. Rumi, I hope she managed to get out of Shibuya okay. Suddenly worried, Kano pulled out his cell phone. There were a whole bunch of things he wanted to tell her. He couldn't share the whole story. Police rules wouldn't allow it, but he wanted to let her know as much as he could. That the kidnapping case had been resolved safely, for instance. That he learned about the tortured past of the detective he so admired. That his partner was going to pull through. That he'd managed to finally talk to her father. That he'd put his life on the line to save Shibuya from danger. Rumi would listen quietly to the very end, and then, Kano thought, he knew just what she'd say. Short and sweet, in that gentle voice of hers. Good job. There we go. Here's your cast. There's Robert Baldwin's name. There she is. There's I already forgot the name of the mascot. It's eggs, right? It's Tama? Yeah. Tama. Because Tamago. Yeah. Now I remembered. I had to remember the egg part. This guy's gonna live! You know, YouTube picks up this song. But I don't make money from YouTube, so whatever. See, Aya Kamiki herself. Aya Kamiki's real, as a real person. Remember this guy? I'm glad he had to turn around. Remember this guy? I'm surprised he didn't show up at the end. At least at the scramble. Oh, I hope he's okay. Oh, we're stuttering again? Dang. Why am I having internet issues? Well, I'm gonna let it play out for the VOD. I can't stop it. I'll restart the router when we get done with the credits, and we'll keep playing the game, because we've got more things to do. Morikawa and his bro. Yeah, I wish the internet would play nice today. It's like not bad, but it's like not hanging on, right? Like it's just being choppy now, right? And maybe sopping every now and then. But hey, we did it. Remember this guy? Trying to kill himself all the time? Remember Chiaki fell? But she fought through. Remember when they ate a banana? They ate bananas together? Remember when Achi's dad was telling some guy to kill some late random girl? And it's being so weird. So I'm a little scared about Alphard being taken by the CIA, considering that she has connections to the CIA. I'm also kind of sad my internet is being like this. Just gonna check something real quick. I'm gonna pause the recording for now. So we're back. Like I said, I am still worried that Alphard is in the backseat of a CIA vehicle, considering her ties to the CIA. But part of me is hoping that, like, the real Kanan will show up. I don't know. I have hopes. Gordon and Alphard sat in the back seat as the car sped along the highway. Here. Gordon tossed the handcuff key onto the seat beside him. See, like, how quickly, in one line. No data caps. I know, it was like 2 seconds in. What happened down there at the Scramble? Alphard asked, picking up the key and unlocking her cuffs. Leland Palmer was arrested by the Japanese police. So, yeah, I guess this whole time, maybe the CIA wanted the antivirus. And the bomb in the attaché case was defused, apparently. Still, Palmer shouldn't pose a problem once we get him into CIA custody. Yeah. But I mean, they already have it. So all they had to do was destroy the cure. Because there's a cure to it. That was the whole Alphard plan. Alphard already had the virus. He infected Hitomi like a week before the kidnapping or whatever. Or maybe 3 days, I don't remember. Something like that. And then he had this whole giant plan to destroy the antiviral. Is it? It is acting up again. What is this wrong? Alright, I'm gonna plug directly. I'm gonna plug it directly into the modem. And we're back from those internet issues that I said were all behind us. I've got a different configuration that we're gonna run and see if that fixes anything. So yeah. Leland Palmer was arrested by the Japanese police and the bomb in the attaché case was defused, apparently. Still, Palmer shouldn't pose a problem once we get him into CIA custody. I see. Much obliged. You really got yourself backed into a corner, though, didn't you? Gordon said. Yeah. I was only able to accomplish half of what I intended. Half? Alphard produced a vial from her pocket. It was filled with red liquid. Is that Hitomi's blood? Gordon asked. Indeed. I managed to acquire the antiviral. But when? Gordon peered at her in bewilderment. When I blew up the minivan. In the dim light of the vehicle, Alfred's eyes shone darkly, like those of a wounded animal. Extracting the blood from Hitomi while she was unconscious had been a simple matter. That's right, she shielded her from the minivan explosion, but somehow extracted blood without Hitomi even noticing. Though I guess Satomi was out, right? Saving the girl's life had been more than just a means of ensuring her trust. Alphard had been looking for the right moment to carry out the extraction. Total secrecy was essential. If it became knowledge that the drug existed and that some of it had been stolen, the value of the UA virus would plummet. Our primary objective here was to destroy that research facility. Still, getting our hands on the antiviral is better than nothing. Well done as always, Alphard. Gordon's hard expression softened, but Alphard was in no mood to return his smile. If Maria Osawa had remained inside the facility, her plan would have succeeded. Everything else up until that point had gone off without a hitch. The one thing Alphard hadn't anticipated was Maria bringing the bomb outside. She had injected Maria with a knockout drug back at Endo Electronics that should have kept her from moving around for a while, even after she'd regained consciousness. And in any case, she wouldn't have expected the girl to just march into the midst of an armed standoff. She had been certain that Maria would never leave the lab. She had misjudged how strong the girl's feelings for Kanan were. Maria's body had been put into a state of torpor. There were a bunch of people pointing guns at each other, and still she had been undeterred. Yuri saves the day. Alphard's plan had hinged on Maria's relationship with Kanan, and ironically, that same relationship had made the plan fall apart. It was true that she'd accomplished half of her goals, but Alphard still couldn't shake her sense of failure. She softly bit her lip as she gazed out through the car window. The bright windows of a few buildings shone out in the midst of the otherwise darkened city. A group of tiny lights that refused to be washed out by the darkness. The end. Published by Spike-Chunsoft. White Bookmark. I don't know what's happening. I'll hit the button. This is a new feature that lets me get through the game faster now. You'll find a match soon. I want to be a strong person. Please be happy for me. Heartbeat of Spring. Bonus content added to the title screen. Previews added to bonus content. Suzune preview added to bonus content. 428 pop quiz added to bonus content. So I got an achievement, and it said the end with a question mark, and said viewed the normal ending. Okay, so it looks like we can look at the previews. We also saw the Suzune preview. So maybe the Suzune mode is in the timeline. We also have pop quiz. But let's see what happens when we load our save. So we have the white bookmark. It's on our picture. We have 6 endings and 50 bad ends. RB for bonus. A shadow character and Suzune. I guess let's see what the hell's going on. Let me change the stream title real quick. We reached credits, but it seems our journey... Yeah. Should probably learn how to spell. 428 continues. You guys ready? You guys ready to go back into 428? It was almost 1 o'clock. On 428? Takuya Kazama watched the orderly collect his meal tray, waiting for the door to fully close behind him before slipping out of bed. He dragged the folding chair closer to the window and sat down. Then he meticulously scanned the entire length of the vast central courtyard outside. From up here on the second floor, he had a great view of the whole open space. Takuya Kazama. The hospital was shaped like a boxy U, enclosing a promenade that wove its way between the trees, where pajama-clad patients and visitors from their families were enjoying the first day of sunshine to come along in a while. Not yet. She still isn't here. I seem to be doing okay today. If she does show up in the courtyard, I'll sneak out for a walk myself. And then I'll make sure I go and talk to her. Hey, what's your name? No, I can't just up and ask her like that. Maybe I should tell her my name first. I'm Takuya. Who are you? Or is it silly to tell her what my name is when she hasn't even asked? So what's wrong with you? No, she's been here at least as long as I have. Whatever it is can't be anything small. So yeah, no way I can open that much up. Open with that. That comes later. Much later. Nice weather we're having. Nah, what am I? 90 years old? I need to say something hip. You come out here all the time, huh? No, that's terrible. I might as well say I've been watching you. She'll think I'm a stalker. In the midst of his internal debate, Takuya happened to cast his gaze back out into the courtyard, and there she was, standing right under his window. She wore a white cardigan over her pajamas, standing with her head tilted back and her eyes closed, basking in the light of the sun. The angle finally gave him a good look at her face. The wind caught her evenly cropped bangs, blowing them back to expose the delicate curve of her forehead. She looked deeply happy as she stood, breathing a gentle smile across her face. FMV Suzune. Heartbeat of spring. Takuya felt as though she was smiling at him, and it brought a tightness to his chest. He'd always thought that it would make him possibly happy, were that angelic smile ever to turn his way. So why did it hurt so much instead? He saw her open her eyes back up, and he hurriedly backed away from the window. She saw me. Or did she? No, there's no way she could see in here with the glare. But what does it even matter? I was going to talk to her anyway. Right? So go on, go out there. Fighting his nerves, Takia moved back to the windowsill. She was gone. Where had she disappeared to? Takia scrambled out of his room and rushed to the elevator. It'll be alright, my muscles aren't too stiff. Today's a good day. Takia, where are you going? He recognized the voice of a familiar nurse calling out from behind him, but he ignored her and jammed his thumb on the close button. Once he was down on the first floor, he made his way to the courtyard exit, slipped on some sandals, and headed outside. He pretended to be out for a walk as he wandered in search of the girl, but he went the length of the courtyard and back to the spot under his window without finding her. That's odd. Usually she stays out here a lot longer. You look a little pale. Are you alright? Asked the voice. Huh? He turned and saw the girl sitting on a nearby bench. Takia took half a step back in surprise. Somehow he'd missed her in the shadow of the trees. I'm sorry, she said. Did I startle you? No, not really. You look like you're in pain. Should I go get a doctor? She was right. He wasn't used to so much walking. I'll be alright. I just need to rest for a bit, he said, relieved he'd managed to answer. Lately his words hadn't been coming out all that well. The girl stood up and reached a hand out to him, but Takia couldn't bring himself to take it. Instead, he simply sat down on the bench. Not too close to her, but not too far away either. His heart had suddenly begun pounding, but he couldn't tell it. He couldn't tell if it was just because of his exhaustion or because he was so close to her. So, you're the boy from that room up there, right? She pointed to this window on the second floor, and Takia had to stifle a gasp. A little earlier, we made eye contact, didn't we? Did we? Takia mumbled, averting his gaze. I was just spacing out. I didn't notice. I've seen you up there from time to time. You look lonely. Are you not able to leave your room much? She didn't notice that I'm always looking at her. Good. Yeah, I get tired real easily. I see. I'm not able to get very much exercise myself. But they told me that when I'm feeling well enough for it, I should get up and walk around a bit so my leg muscles don't get weak. You have a problem with your legs? No, with my heart. And they say the legs are like a second heart. They play an important part in blood circulation. So if my leg muscles get too weak, it's bad for my health. You know how when a racehorse breaks a leg, it winds up dying? I guess it's sort of like that. Her tone was cheerful enough, as if she talked about this all the time, but the thought filled Takia with sadness. So, he began. Yes? Do you mind if I ask you your name? As he fumbled the words out, the girl broke out into a beaming smile. That wonderful smile, the one that until now he had only seen from afar so many, many times. Suzune Endo. The Suzune is written with the characters for bell and sound, so like the chiming of bells. Suzune, the chiming of bells. It was a name that suited her soothing voice perfectly. Suzune Endo. Suzune Endo. Takia repeated the name to himself over and over. What's your name? Takia. Takia Kazama. Takia Kazama, huh? That's a pretty cool name. I guess it means tough guy or something. Not that I live up to that. The truth was that Takia was always embarrassed to tell strangers his name. I don't know about that. You seem pretty cool to me, Takia. So how old are you? Takia's heart sank. Only kids had to be told they were cool. I'm 14. What about you, Suzune? From afar, he hadn't realized how tall she was. Taller than him and probably older. I'm 17. He thought the difference would be less. 3 whole years apart. Takia's heart sank further. Now she seemed even more unattainable. As he tried to think of a way to nonchalantly ask Suzune where her room was, he heard the slap-slap of sandals approaching. Suzune! A boy came running up. He was young, maybe in 1st grade or so. Hi, Ken. Long time no see. This your brother? Takia asked. No, he's in the room next to mine. Who's this? The boy clung possessively to Suzune's knee as he peered at Takia. This is Takia Kazuma. He's a patient like us. Huh? Hey, I got some candy. Want to eat it? The boy tugged on Suzune's hand. Oh, yeah? Alright then, Takia. I'll see you later. Yeah, later. Later? Later when? Am I actually going to get to see her again? As Takia watched the young boy drag Suzune back inside, he felt a bitter surge of resentment. He thought that finally getting the chance to talk to her would make him feel a lot better. But instead he felt worse than he had back when all he could do was stare at her through the window. The sunlit garden suddenly struck him as cold and desolate, so he trudged back inside, his muscles faintly shuddering with each step. He made his way back toward the elevator to find the head nurse waiting in the corridor glaring at him. He kept his head down and tried to slip on past her, but she snapped at him as he drew near. What were you talking about with Miss Endo? Huh? Takia blushed at the idea that she'd been watching them, but he soon realized she was being serious. You shouldn't get too close to that girl. Why not? He asked. She may not look it, but she's seriously ill. Neither of you has the ability to fend off a major infection, and we certainly don't want you to go catching anything. The nurse looked away as she spoke, rattling off the words. But they let her go outside like that, right? Yes, that's true. But Takia, why in the world did you go out? Did the doctor tell you to go for a walk? No. But I thought that since I was feeling pretty well and all. You expect me to believe that? You're shaking. Come on, let's get you back to bed. The nurse ushered Takia into the elevator and escorted him back to his room. He was actually quite exhausted, and so he quietly got back into bed. Nurse? Takia called out to her as she was leaving. Yes? Suzune, Miss Endo, I mean, she's got a bad heart, doesn't she? Did she tell you that? For whatever reason, the head nurse seemed quite shocked that Suzune had shared this information. Yeah. What is she sick with? It's something very serious. That's why you ought to leave her alone. But she's going to get better, right? Takia regretted the question the instant he asked it. The nurse's grim expression was answer enough. A sweet and cheerful girl like that had an incurable illness? For a while, Takia couldn't even believe it. After the nurse had left, he stared at the closed door in a daze. From that day on, Takia kept up his vigilant watch on the courtyard. Alright, so this is taking place in March, it seems, a month before the events of the game. Sneaking out of his room whenever he caught sight of Suzune. Bit by bit, the two of them began talking more. Sometimes she'd come out 2 days in a row, and sometimes he wouldn't see her for nearly a week at a time. Other times, he would wander the hospital corridors in search of a room, only to be intercepted and sent back to his room by the head nurse. Suzune was quite popular, most especially the old men, old women, and young children at the hospital all seemed devoted to her, their faces lighting up whenever she was around. She was kind enough to listen to all their grumbling or trifling conversations. Takia was equal parts impressed and baffled by her ability to relate to them. I could never put up with that sort of thing. More than anything, though, her popularity was frustrating. He would have had much more time alone with her if all these people weren't always around. He felt like that he was the last in a long line of supplicants waiting for her to grace him with a few moments of her time. But after she learned about Takiya's condition, perhaps out of some strange form of camaraderie, Suzune seemed to develop more of an interest in him. Wilson's disease, also known as hepatolenticular degeneration, a congenital abnormality of the liver cells in which the cell's ability to eliminate excess copper from the body is impaired, leading to copper accumulation in the liver, basal ganglia, corneas, and kidneys. The disease can cause difficulties with movement, neurological problems, and often leads to further complications such as acute hepatitis and cirrhosis of the liver. Yeah, what's a kid in his internal thoughts thinking supplicant? Wilson's disease? I've never heard of it. Is it serious? Suzune's concern seemed entirely genuine. For a brief moment, Takia was almost happy about his rare and grave condition. But he couldn't say that, of course, and so he just nodded. Yeah. If you look, you can see that my eyes have turned kind of brown. Takia pointed at one of his eyes to indicate the pale brown ring in his cornea. Abnormal buildup of copper can cause brownish rings to appear alongside the edge of the cornea. These are known as Kaiser-Fleischer rings. Or Kaiser-Fleischer rings? It's something you're born with, where copper builds up inside your body. I'd get really tired super easily, and when the doctors checked me out, it turned out I had hepatitis caused by Wilson's disease. My liver was already seriously damaged, and the only thing that'll fix it is a transplant. That's why I'm here. But finding a compatible donor has been hard. I guess we're in the same boat. You need a transplant too, Suzune? Yeah, I'm still waiting. I have what's called dilated cardiomyopathy, a condition where a structural change in heart muscle cells causes the ventricle walls to become thin and distended. This decreases heart function, and as the condition progresses, it can lead to heart failure, arrhythmia, and other issues. Victims of the disease have a high probability of sudden death at a young age. At present, a heart transplant is the only cure for the disease. They've tried other forms of treatment, like limiting food and water intake for long periods, putting in an implanted defibrillator, and other things. A device implanted within the body that delivers an electrical shock to the heart that has gone into cardiac arrest due to arrhythmia caused by ventricular fibrillation, or ventricular tachycardia. These implants are an effective defense against cardiac arrest, but when triggered, they can also cause intense pain in some patients due to the electrical energy involved. But it looks like a transplant is the only real solution. Dilated cardiomyopathy? Defibrillator? What are those? Takia didn't understand all the vocabulary, but it sounded like her condition was even worse than his own. But the biggest problem, Suzune continued, is that there just aren't a lot of heart donors in Japan. And moreover... Abruptly, she fell silent. A look of loneliness crossed her face, then she turned back to Takia with a reassuring smile. You'll find a match soon, Takia. Everything will be fine. And you'll find one too, Suzune. Isn't that right? Takia felt like something was caught in his throat. It was hard to get the words out. Yeah, if I'm really lucky. Suzune hesitated before continuing. But even then, I doubt I'll be able to get the surgery. Her tone was so matter-of-fact. Why not? Takia asked. My family doesn't have a lot of money, so we can't afford to get surgery overseas. But it's alright. I don't really like the idea of being saved by getting some poor brain-dead person's heart. I mean, that's what it comes down to, you know? Unless someone else dies, I can't be saved. If I had to think of some family out there grieving over their loss, I wouldn't be able to be happy, even if it did mean I got better. Takia had never thought about that. Just imagining part of some stranger's body getting put inside his own was more than scary enough. Still, if he had to choose between that and death, well, it wasn't even a contest. But if you don't get a transplant, then everybody dies. That's just how it is. For some of us, it just happens earlier than for others. You can't just give up like that, Takia cried. I won't survive unless I get someone's liver. But if I'm lucky enough to actually get one, I'll be happy about it. The doctor told me that people only give their organs on death because they want to. They want to save lives. Suzune appeared flustered. I'm sorry. I know that's the way I should be thinking about it. I'm sure that things will go well for you, Takia, and that they'll find a donor for you, and you shouldn't hesitate to get that surgery. By getting better, you'll be honoring the dead in a way. But... She let out a sigh. That's not gonna happen for me. Why not? My blood type is really unique. I don't think a compatible donor is ever going to turn up. A unique blood type? Takia stammered a little as he asked. You mean like Rh negative? Suzune shook her head. You've probably never heard of it. It's called Bombay. They say only a few dozen people have it in all of Japan. One of that handful of people would have to happen to go brain dead. Then they'd need to get that person here before their heart stopped. And then the surgery itself would need to go well enough. That's too many coincidences to hope for, you know? Takia was too surprised to say anything at all. I'm not about to live what's left of my life expecting that I will win the lottery like that, Suzune said. It's better to focus as best I can on what I can do. On what you can do? What do you mean? There are a lot of patients here like you and me who have been here for a very long time. Most of them are senior citizens whose family rarely ever come to see them. And I kind of enjoy listening to the older people talk. They've all got plenty of interesting stories to tell. But more importantly, it brings smiles to their faces, having someone who will listen to them. They tell me that for a little while, it's like they're young again, like their pain has gone away. And seeing them smile, it makes me happy too. I want to make friends with as many people as possible, to learn about as many people as possible, as I can. I don't have time to wallow in my own misfortune. Takia had assumed that, unlike himself, Suzune was as cheerful as she seemed to be because she had hoped that she'd get better. He had been suffering through his own illness and had thought day in and day out about how unlucky he was to have been born with it. Though he hated to admit it, he had long since discarded any hope that they'd find a donor and give him a successful transplant. Until he met Suzune, he'd lived every day cursing his fate. Their circumstances were so similar, so why were they so different? Suzune was like an angel. Takia felt like a miserable excuse for a human being. I have to spend a lot of time resting in bed, Suzune. I have to spend a lot of time resting in bed, Suzune said, so I read a lot. Novels, essays. Sometimes I try to read more difficult books on philosophy. I don't always understand a lot of it, but sometimes it just clicks, you know? And I read high school textbooks sometimes, too. Well, except for math. I've given up on that. Takia didn't like reading. When he was in his room, he just watched TV. A lot of the time, the only shows that were on were garbage, and he knew they were garbage while he was watching them. But there wasn't anything else that caught his interest. His motivation to study was non-existent, and he certainly didn't have any textbooks in his room. It was like he was going to go on and on living a full life, and live a full life, get a normal job, have a normal family. Or it wasn't like he was going to go on and live a full life, get a normal job, have a normal family. So what point was there in studying? That's what he had always thought, at least. Am I just wrong? Halfway through her dinner, Suzune found that she'd lost her appetite. Her mood was bleak. Why did I get so high and mighty with Takia like that? All I ever do is pretend to be the person I wish I was. In reality, all I do is worry about just when this heart of mine is going to stop. I know it's normal to be afraid of dying. I practice smiling for my father and my brother. I don't want them to see my fear. I was happy and a little bit shocked when I realized that my fake smiles actually worked. My smiles might have been forced, but the ones I got from those old men and old women and all the little kids, those were real. Oh, hey, Suzune. Hello, young lady. Everyone's so happy, always so happy to see me. At some point, Suzune had realized that she was no longer able to tell if her own smile was fake or not. She wasn't lying when she said that the smiles on other people's faces brought her joy. But every now and then, the loneliness returned. She wished she could tell someone how scared she was. Finally let herself shed the tears she'd held in for so long. But she'd never be able to do that to either her father or her brother. She didn't want them worrying about her any more than they already did. Her pulse grew erratic. Her intense heartbeat hammered like the hoofbeats of a horse at full gallop. A type of abnormal heartbeat known as a gallop rhythm. Instead of the normal 2-beat lub-dub rhythm of a healthy heart, it consists of 3 beats, resembling the sound of a galloping horse, an indication of potential heart failure. A sensation she'd known since childhood. Then she felt an intensely painful electrical shock course through her. Her implanted defibrillator had activated. After suffering through the pain for about 10 seconds, she felt her heartbeat stabilize. I'm alright. My heart is still pumping. But despite her relief, it was impossible not to think about how time was drawing ever closer. If you're in pain, just say so. It's okay to admit it. With a start, Suzune looked up and saw a nurse in her doorway. She hadn't even noticed the door opening. Was it time to have her temperature taken again? She hurriedly put on the mask of a smile. Oh no, I'm okay. It's all calmed down now. Your illness isn't the problem. Hiding it is. If you need a little comfort, just ask. Suzane was at a loss for words. It was dark outside, and with the lights in her room turned off, she couldn't get a good look at the nurse's face. The woman was tall and slender, and had a rather nice build. Was there a nurse like that on staff in this ward? She couldn't remember. Well, what are you talking about? Suzune felt her smile warp as she struggled to conceal a sudden upwelling of sorrow. You're facing your condition like an adult, but from your father's perspective, you're still his little girl. It's completely natural for your family to worry about you. This person knows who I am. I'm not sure how, but she knows everything. It's Mom. Suzune let her mask fall. She looked down at her hands, balled tightly into fists, and she let the tears come. I want to be a strong person, but I can't do it. Everyone tells me what a strong and cheerful girl I am, but it's all a lie. The words spilled out as her emotions came rushing to the surface. I'm afraid of dying. I'm afraid of getting surgery. I'm even afraid to go on living. What scares me more than anything is when night comes. I'm afraid every time I go to sleep that I might not wake up again. I thought that if I kept pretending I wasn't scared, that eventually I'd be able to fool myself. But that didn't happen. I'm the only one I can't fool. I think you're pretty strong. Plenty strong. Huh? Everyone's afraid of death. That's why they try their hardest to look away from it. Why they try to forget during the day-to-day that it's coming. But you face it every day. Face it head on. You're a stronger girl than you think. Everyone else probably underestimates your strength. The nurse's voice was smooth and soft. Her words flowed over Suzune, washing away her darker emotions. That's why you shouldn't push yourself so hard. If you keep trying to face all your fears by yourself, then one day you might break. It's okay to let it out every now and then. Vent your frustrations. You're fighting so hard every day. There's nothing wrong with asking for a little help. Oh, maybe it's just another nurse. I thought maybe it was like a vision of Mom or something. Because she already knew, like, her condition and father, and it seems like she doesn't recognize the nurse. The nurse sat down on the bed and began to gently stroke Suzune's hair. If you're ever afraid to go to sleep, call for me any time. I'm always here for you. I'll watch until you wake up in the morning. That should help, yes? I couldn't ask you that, is what Suzune had meant to say. But the comforting warmth that enveloped her stopped the words, carrying her gently towards sleep. It was a feeling she'd nearly forgotten. Like something from very long ago. But from when exactly? Maybe it was Mama. It's been a while since I've seen her mom, so I don't really recognize her. When Suzune woke the next morning, the nurse was gone, but she did not despair. If she ever needed her, the nurse would be there for her again. Of that she was sure. Good morning, Miss Endo. The nurse who came to take her temperature was the usual one, not the one who'd been there in the night. Good morning. A natural smile came to Suzune's face. She felt deeply grateful that she'd gotten to live to see another day. The weather was nice, so after lunch, Suzune headed out into the courtyard. More than anyone else, she hoped to run into Takuya. She'd understood his outlook on the world the moment she learned of his condition. Plus, it was kinda cute seeing how hard he tried to hide the way he felt. The fondness she felt for him was like that for a younger brother. At some point, she'd realized that they had a special bond. There was a sense of solidarity, knowing that they were both waiting on a transplant for an otherwise incurable disease. She wanted to say the things she told him the day before. That was just her searching for an ideal something to live up to. She wasn't philosophical. She wasn't enlightened. She just wanted to be honest about how hard it was every day. Surely he would understand. But Suzune didn't see Takia in the courtyard that afternoon. She made small talk with several other patients, like she usually did, then headed back to her room. Takia didn't turn up the next day either, nor the day after that. She would look up at his window from the courtyard, but she never saw him. Where was he? Had his condition taken a turn for the worse? Was he no longer well enough to go outside? Suzune had never been to the second floor where his room was, but she knew the first floor well enough that she could guess the layout well enough to avoid getting lost. Well enough. With that in mind, she decided to pay Takia a visit. She went up to the second floor, walking slowly as she eyed the nameplates for the rooms along the courtyard side. There, right about where she expected it to be, she found it. Takia Kazama. She'd been afraid that his nameplate had been removed. If it hadn't been there, that would have meant he'd been discharged. That his room had been swapped for some reason. Or else. As Suzune was about to knock, a voice called out from behind her. Miss Endo? She turned around to see an unfamiliar nurse standing there. Perhaps she was in charge of the ward, or had seen Suzune walking around before, and that was how she knew her name. Yes? Suzune asked. Were you looking for Takia? Yeah. I hadn't seen him in a while, so I was wondering. I'm sorry. Takia wants to get out more than he does, but honestly, he's not in any shape to be moving around much. We're worried about infection as well, so we've limited his visitors. You probably shouldn't be wandering this far yourself. The nurse pointedly pulled the sliding door to Takia's room closed. If I could just see him real quick. No, the nurse snapped, then hurriedly cleared her throat and spoke more softly. You wouldn't want his condition to get any worse, would you? Suzune saw that she'd have to back down. She returned obediently to her own ward. But she had a hard time accepting the fact that she couldn't visit Takia. Does that nurse have some kind of grudge against me? Not only does she know my name and know about my condition, she must also know that I've been talking with Takia in the courtyard. Does she think I'm the reason his condition has gotten worse? Suzune knew that his health wasn't as good as he might have claimed, and she felt a little guilty that she hadn't been as considerate as she perhaps should have. After that, whenever Suzune went out for a walk, she made a point of swinging by Takia's room, asking several nurses and doctors about his condition. They would always say he was doing fine, but staunchly refused to let her see him. Is he maybe already... Suzune couldn't help but imagine the worst. Is everyone just working together to keep me in the dark? But why would they do that? Do they think I'm his girlfriend and they're trying to keep me from the shock of finding out or something? No, that was ridiculous. Besides, this was a hospital. Suzune knew full well that they didn't have the time to put on some weird piece of theater after a patient had passed away. There must be some other reason. Some reason they don't want us to see each other. Willing to do whatever she could to discover that reason, Suzune tried changing the time of day that she stopped by Takia's room. Maybe if nobody was watching, she'd be able to sneak a peek inside. If someone happened to be coming by or going, she might even be able to get a look at his face. If someone happened to be coming or going, she might even be able to get a look at his face. But Suzune never imagined the way she'd finally wind up seeing him again. On that day, she had been hiding behind one of the heated meal carts used for delivering dinner to the patients. She followed the orderlies as they brought the cart towards Takia's room. They'd have to open his door in order to bring his tray inside. But before she reached his room, the door swung forcibly open, and a bed was swiftly pushed from inside. Doctors and nurses, their faces pale, ushered it along, pushing the meal cart out of the way as they raced down the corridor. Takia lay on the bed, his eyes closed, his face severely jaundiced. He didn't appear to be conscious. Takia. Suzune cried out without thinking. One of the nurses glanced back at her briefly before disappearing from sight with the others as they brought the bed into the elevator. Takia. As Suzune stood there dumbstruck, her eyes strayed to the open door to his room. With shaky footsteps, she went inside. Takia's room was largely the same as her own. There was a locker by the entrance, along with a small refrigerator. Over by the window was a TV stand. Next to that was a bookshelf packed with books. She picked up one of the books atop the bedside table. It was a beginner's primer on topics such as organ transplantation and brain death. On the bookshelf were other, more difficult-looking medical volumes intended for experts. Takia's been studying up on diseases. I wonder if he's been holed up in here reading these the whole time. Maybe he'd overdone it, studying. That would be a cruel irony. Suzune prayed to a god she had never before believed in. Please, save him. Takia blearily opened his eyes. This wasn't his room. An artificial respirator was fitted over his nose and mouth, and several tubes ran between his body and a hemofiltration machine. Vinyl curtains enclosed the area around his bed. A machine that regulates electrolytes and removes waste products from the blood in lieu of the kidneys, used to assist patients with decreased kidney function. Purifying the blood too quickly can, however, result in the collapse of the body's electrolyte balance, leading to headaches or muscle spasms. He was in an ICU, intensive care unit, a clinical facility that allows for focused, around-the-clock treatment and monitoring for patients with severe and life-threatening illnesses or injuries, also used for patients whose conditions might potentially become critical, or for patients requiring an extreme degree of care following surgery. Several people bustled frantically about. The last thing Takia remembered was being in his room. Was that minutes ago? Or has it been days? Excuse me. Could someone... Takia paused. His voice didn't even sound like his own. Doctor, he's regained consciousness, a nurse announced. At that, the face of his attending physician, Dr. Seki. Oh, did they have the same doctor? Is that the name of Suzune's doctor? It's been a while since we've seen him. I think I remember saying Dr. Seki. Suddenly came into view. He was wearing an operating mask. Takia, the doctor said, please hang in there. Takia. It sounded like his father and mother were there on the other side of the curtain. If the staff had called them here, did that mean he was on the brink? What day is it? What was that? The respirator was making Takia's voice hard to understand. He struggled to form the words. Today, what day is it? It's April 5th. April 5th. There were still over 3 weeks to go until his 15th birthday. What was going on? It's too late to save me, isn't it? You mustn't say things like that. How much longer do I have? Will I make it another month? Saki lowered his eyes. Or Seki. No guarantees then. Please, doctor. I just need 3 more weeks. Please do whatever you can to let me live for just 3 more weeks. I can't die yet. Dr. Seki nodded, a thoughtful look on his face. Is there something you can do? Please. I don't want to die yet. I haven't done anything yet. Please, just a little more time. There is a life-prolonging procedure, highly experimental. However, I don't care about the risks. I just don't want to die yet. There's something called an artificial liver system. Clinical trials have only just been concluded in Japan. Although a liver dialysis machine can be thought of as a sort of artificial liver, an actual liver carries out much more complicated metabolic reactions that dialysis cannot completely replace. For this reason, biohybrid liver replacements combining mechanical functions with active live liver cells from pigs are currently under research, but clinical tests have been concluded in the United States. The hope is that these bioartificial devices will someday be able to keep those who failed livers alive until the necessary transplants are available. It's a device that uses cells harvested from pigs. If things go well, rather than just 3 weeks, it might be possible to keep you alive until a donor turns up. The mention of pig cells was startling, but right now is no time to be squeamish. Please, doctor, put that pork in me. If there's even the slightest chance, it's worth it. He wants to live. I know, it's really hard, like, this part is very emotional and very serious. So I apologize, but it felt weird that as a streamer I wasn't making any kind of jokes or anything. After Takia was rushed to the ICU, Suzune went to check up on him every day without regard for her own well-being. Day after day she visited, only to be told that he was still in an unconscious state. 3 weeks went by without a change. Then one morning, while passing by the kitchenette on her way to the ICU, Suzune overheard some nurses talking. Did you hear? Takiya's regained consciousness. For better or for worse. Poor kid. He keeps saying that he doesn't want to die yet. That he wants to live. He's only what, 14? The young nurse's voice was tearful. Suzune felt a new kind of pain in her chest. He's running out of time for a transplant. And with that rare blood type... Rare blood type? Suzune stopped in her tracks, then rushed back to the kitchenette. Well, I've been playing this game since January, and I'm trying to finish it. Hey, Farmsteads. We actually got the normal ending, and now we're playing the bonus content, which has been very sad and serious. Excuse me. What do you mean by rare blood type? The moment she saw Suzune, the nurse clammed up and tried to slip away. Please, hold on. That rare blood type. Is it Bombay? Suzune shouted. The nurses exchanged an awkward look with one another, and though neither of them said anything, Suzune knew that she was right. Do I know Mobile Planet Stylus? I do not. That does not ring any bells with me. Takia has Bombay blood too. This was a hospital with high-end facilities that drew patients with incurable diseases from all over the country, so maybe it wasn't such a remarkable coincidence. Transfusions for rare blood types such as Bombay were difficult to come by at regional hospitals. There were some advantages to having another such patient on hand nearby. You're okay. But yeah, we are like in the thick of like a kid is almost dying kind of shit. But there were downsides too. Now the inexplicable behavior of the doctors and nurses made sense. They'd been trying to keep Suzune and Takia from each discovering that the other had Bombay blood. It was unsettling enough to know that someone else of a blood type only possessed by a few dozen other people in all of Japan was hospitalized right alongside you. But when both of you were waiting for a compatible donor in the hopes of receiving a transplant, that was enough to upset anyone's composure. How must Takia have felt when she told him that she had Bombay blood as well? If I die, If I die, she could live. Something like that must have crossed his mind. The fact that he started studying up about transplants again must mean he'd been thinking of something. What in the world was he thinking? If our positions were reversed, what would I have done? Suzune knew that what she had to do. She headed for the ICU. She got there just as Dr. Seiki, who was her own attending physician as well, emerged from inside. Miss Sendo. The doctor stopped, surprised. Suzune drew herself upright and looked him right in the eye. Doctor, please use my liver for a transplant for Takia. You can perform a living liver transplant, right? If you need to take half or even 2/3 of it, then please, by all means. For a moment, Dr. Seiki looked as if he'd taken a punch to the face, but soon his expression resolved into a sad smile. You heard about the blood. Suzune nodded. I'm afraid that won't be possible. A living liver transplant is dangerous enough for a healthy person. Someone in your condition would never be able to tolerate the surgery. You can do it when my time comes then, Suzune said. Regardless, Miss Endo, I can't carry out a living liver transplant between complete strangers. The law doesn't allow it. If the two of you got married, that would be a different story. But that's not possible either. Neither you nor Takia can legally marry until you're 18. Married. Suzune had never thought about such a thing, but if marrying Takia would make the surgery possible, she'd do whatever it took. But apparently the law wasn't going to allow for that either. He's just turning 15. Well, I don't care what the law says. If I'm the only person who can save Takia, then please take my liver. Doctor, please. I'm afraid what you're asking simply can't be done. You need to focus on your own condition and on getting better yourself. I'm beyond saving anyway, though. Right? So please, I'm begging you. Takia needs... As Suzune grabbed hold of the doctor's gown, pleading, a sharp pain shot through her chest. Oh no. Is it... Last time we had a date, it was April 5th when Takia was in bed. Are we here? Because she gets they say she has like a spasm or a seizure. She has a seizure the day of the events of the game. The galloping heartbeat was back. No, her pulse had never been quite this erratic before. Her mouth opened and closed reflexively. She was unable to breathe. Doctor, please. Well, at least you're already in ICU. An electrical shock went through her from the implanted defibrillator. The world faded as she slowly collapsed on the floor. No. Suzune had a long dream. Her father was in that dream. And though Suzune couldn't clearly remember her face, her late mother was there too, trying desperately to save her. And then there was Takia. Takia was smiling. A genuine smile. A smile that Suzune had never seen. Takia's mouth was moving, but no sound came out. She tried to read his lips. Thank you. Thank you? Wait, what do you mean? Suzune cried out as she woke. She was staring up at a familiar ceiling. She was back in her own room. She spotted her older brother, Achi, sleeping in a folding chair nearby. A jump point? Achi? The word creaked raspily from her throat. Huh? Suzune, you're awake. Her brother rose from the chair, then excitedly scampered out of the room. With a start, Suzune realized something was attached to her chest. Well, I mean, we haven't had any mechanics since we were doing the epilogue and now this, so it's been a while. She felt a peculiar sensation. 6 distinct tingles, all running from the center to the left side of her chest. Electrocardiograph. Electrodes. She followed the leads that ran from her chest to the monitor by her pillow, and was surprised to see the waveform moving across it. It was her pulse. And amazingly, the rhythm was solid and strong. Nothing like the one she'd been familiar with for so long. No. That's not my pulse. Suzanne realized what she was seeing. She understood instinctively. This heart. It was Takiya's. Achi returned with Dr. Saiki, who proceeded to check the various monitoring devices by the bed, nodding and smiling with satisfaction. It's good to see you awake again. For now, there don't appear to be any signs of rejection. Rejection. Of course, we'll need to be vigilant, but this new heart seems to be a good match for you, Miss Endo. It's Takiya's, isn't it? Please tell me it's not. I told you I wanted him to have my liver. Takiya was dead. If she had his heart now, there's no way he was still alive. Osawa might... Here's the thing, right? Mr. Osawa, he was shot. If these events are happening after the events of the game, that this wake up, we don't know, right? We just know it's in it's in April right now. Could Mr. Osawa have the Bombay blood? One of his daughters does. Or did he live? It's hard to say. I guess we'll keep playing. I don't want to assume that Takiya's dead just yet. If they did kill him, that's really fucking dark. Dr. Seiki looked away, and for a while he said nothing. Oh. I didn't read that part. When it comes to who your donor is, I'm not at liberty to say anything. You understand that, right? So instead, let me tell you how things went for Takiya in the end. You two were friends. Boyfriend and girlfriend, maybe. Either way, you have a right to know about his passing. No. Takiya's passing. Suzune had already imagined as much, but now she couldn't hold back the tears. Takiya is dead. He's dead. Dr. Seiki went on. Takiya begged me to keep him alive just a little bit longer. His family agreed, and so he proceeded with an artificial liver system, a treatment that's relatively untested here in Japan. For a while, his systems abated, and he even regained consciousness. The doctor took a breath, but it was already too late. He lapsed into a coma due to acute liver failure, and then developed complications, a condition known as DIC, which causes clotting in blood vessels throughout the body. Initially, we thought he might have hepatic encephalopathy, but a CT scan of the head revealed cerebral edema. He was declared brain dead 2 days after his birthday. He was 15 years old. He got to live to his birthday. Dr. Seiki gave a significant look. Suzune wondered what that implied. He was insisted that he make it to 15, Seiki continued. He said there was something he absolutely needed to do. On his birthday, he called for his family and told them, I want to register as an organ donor. Huh? Here in Japan, individuals under 15 years of age aren't allowed to give consent for organ donation. If Takia had died before he turned 15, then his heart, all of his organs rather, could not have been provided to a patient in need. And that was something he wished for very much. Takia had been reading up and studying, and he learned that he needed to survive until he turned 15. And he asked for life-prolonging measures to be taken, all so that he could register as a donor in order to give me his heart. And I don't know who it was, but apparently a surgeon was able to perform a transplant for a patient believed to be an ideal match for his heart. Evidently, this patient was also comatose and in an extremely dire state. But from what I hear, the surgery seems to have gone quite well. Of course, I don't know the identity of the patient either. Suzune strained to move her right hand, setting it atop her chest. Underneath the layers of bandages, she could feel a heartbeat steady and strong. Takia's heart is beating within me. He left a letter for you. I haven't looked at what's inside, so I'm not sure what it says. Dr. Seiki set a white envelope down on the bedside table, then left the room. Achi, read it to me? She didn't feel strong enough to read it herself, but she didn't want to wait. You sure? Achi asked. Alright then. Let's see. Achi opened the envelope, slid the letter out, and began to read. But then they realized Achi doesn't know how to read. Suzune. I guess I should read this in Takia's voice. If you're reading this letter, that means everything has gone well. Congratulations. And also, thank you. Ever since I became sick, no, even before then, I hadn't known what it was like to be happy. I hated the world. I went through my whole life just thinking about how pointless my existence was, an excuse for a human being with no reason to live. What did it matter if I was here or not? I hated that I was going to die so young. But at the same time, it seemed pointless to try to live any longer. And then I met you. I fell in love with you. I love you, Suzune. With all of my heart. With you in this world, I wanted to go on living a little longer, because living would actually have some meaning. When I found out that we had the same blood, I was shocked. It had to be fate, right? Neither of us were going to be able to survive on our own, but if one of us sacrificed herself for the other one could go on living. And I wouldn't be able to beat any world without you in it, Suzune. Or Bear. The answer was clear. I want you to have my heart, Suzune. That's the best possible thing for the both of us. You're probably a little sad, knowing that I'm gone now. I'll be happy if that's the case. But will you please be happy for me, now that my heart is inside you? That would make me even happier. Happier than anything. Thank you so much for taking my heart. I'll beat for you as hard as it can. I hope. It'll beat for you. I didn't mean I'll. I wish we could have talked more. If it had only been possible, I would have liked to have gone somewhere with you. But it's okay. This way I get to be with you forever. I won't be lonely anymore. Goodbye. I'm looking forward to our future together. Takia Kazuma. Achi's voice grew gradually more hoarse as he read. By the end, he was struggling not to weep. Damn it. Did it really have to be like this? Suzune was more astounded than she was sad. Of course she was upset that Takia had died. And she was glad that she was going to live. But above all, she was amazed by the fact that Takia had cared for her so much as he had. That he'd fought so hard to prolong his own life just to save hers. That moved her more deeply than anything she'd ever known. Maybe a young crush couldn't be called real love. But that didn't make it any less pure. Thank you. Goodbye, and I'm looking forward to our future together. Shit, that was dark, but like melancholic. Yeah, it is nice at the end. I thought maybe for the second they would maybe pull a twist that was... Dream Nurse had a different actor too than all the other nurses. Yeah. I think, well, it's obviously a dream nurse, and she didn't recognize her, but she also didn't recognize her own mother. So I could think we could assume that that was mom. It just had been so long since we'd seen her mom. You know? Yeah. Just wait till you hear what Dad did. Not okay. So I wonder if this was in the original release or not. I don't know. I don't know much about the original 2008 Wii release. I mean, I assume they shot this at the same time, but you never know. It feels... It's like nice closure for something that doesn't actually have to deal with the story of 428, right? The end. Yeah, I didn't know they'd have the balls to kill a 15-year-old boy. But yeah, it was nice. Now I noticed that when we went into that story, there was a second character, a second playable character. So what does that mean? And also there was a jump point for Achi. Yeah, there's mysteries abound. Let go of hatred? Okay. I'm at a loss, and I think I'm just gonna like I don't know. Cause like the Hitomi thing feels like the most Achi thing. I have to set aside my hatred. Alright, so Kano is at I just want the password. Achi is at set aside hatred. Jack is at what will killing Alfred accomplish? It won't bring my brother back. And Tatsuno is at I don't want to shoot if I don't have to. Did I not have this combination? I fucking swear we had this combination before. I'm so fucking mad now. It actually changed. So when you gave the hint that said it wouldn't change the epilogue, then I stopped looking down here and just was like, I don't know. It felt like that hint ruined everything. Because it clearly does. It clearly stops the timeline. That isn't Kanan. I'm just gonna do this whole thing. Maria's voice exploded into the silence of the standoff. I thought we're getting better testimony than that, Stanley said. His gun's still at the ready. There's no talking your way out of things this time. The expression on Alfred's face didn't change. She stood still, a mannequin without a soul. What did you do to Kanan? Maria demanded, marching unsteadily towards the terrorist. Maria, stay back! Osawa exclaimed, but she ignored him. Hey, don't get any closer, Tatsuno barked. He looked exhausted, on the verge of collapse. Answer me, Maria cried, still advancing. What happened to Kanan? I don't know. I feel like you said it will not replace, which makes me think you said something in the epilogue will change, but will not replace 100% of the epilogue. Which made me think that it would all be there, so I stopped looking at it. And no one stopped me. Because I feel like we had this combination of choices at some point. I don't know. Stanley, too, began edging toward her. It doesn't matter what you ask, he said. She won't tell you anything. Bit by bit, he inched closer. Maybe I misread the way maybe I misread how it was said. He was going to try to take her down. No, I get it. I feel like that, for some reason, that hint led me completely in an opposite direction. I'm sorry. Let me turn your question around, Alfred said abruptly. What do you think? This is why vaccine is really fucking hard, right? And it's like, it's kind of why I don't disallow it, but I don't allow it, right? I'm kind of like, I don't have a hard rule like a lot of streamers where they put in the tag, where they put in the stream rules. Because sometimes I need it. Sometimes I'm dumb. I was very dumb tonight. What do you think? Maria paused, confused. What do I think about what? What do you think happened to Kanan? The corners of her lips twisted up, shaping a mirthless smile. You killed her, didn't you? Maria's words came out as a whisper. Oh, if I'm reading this fast, it's because we've been through this like 3 times. What was that? I couldn't quite hear you. You killed Kanan, didn't you? This time Maria cried out with biting fury. Alfred snickered. Maybe because I probably said something you didn't answer, and I was like, then I got stuck on like some weird track of thought. I don't know. That's my fault again. I'm sorry. I misread it and I got stuck in some bad train of thought. And then when you did the other hint, I didn't see your second message because it scrolled too fast. She's provoking me, Maria thought, forcing herself to swallow her rage. She couldn't let herself get caught up in Alfred's game, and her anger would spill out of control. I'm really sad that I couldn't, like, piece this part together. Why are you laughing? By the force of will, Maria made her voice firm and steady. Because I'm guessing you weren't expecting me to show up here. Alfred raised an eyebrow ever so slightly. This thing here, it's a bomb, isn't it? It's okay. I just didn't notice that there was a thing. So I didn't notice when you pointed out which choice was the important one from Kano. All I saw... I only saw the first message and the third message. I didn't see the second message where you said all 4 characters had an important choice. And then when you said important, I thought it meant it had to change the timeline. What? Stanley furrowed his brow. Ah, of course. Even if we managed to catch you here, you'd still be able to destroy the lab. Still, the smile remained on Alfard's face. She seemed to enjoy watching the others figure out her intentions. But you can't trigger the bomb with me standing this close to you, can you? Maria locked eyes with Alfard. Unless you're prepared to sacrifice yourself. She stood like an image of bravery, while on the inside her apprehension threatened to tear her apart. She could feel her heart thudding so furiously that she thought it might explode. Cold sweat trickled down her spine. Only her rage at Kanan's murder kept her from backing down. Go ahead and blow yourself up if that's what you want, she said, but you'll die with nothing. Your death will mean nothing, but not mine. My death will avenge Kanan's. I guess the problem with that is that I don't feel like Tatano's is the high ground or high moral or whatever, right? That choice still feels fucking weird to me. Silence fell outside the laboratory gates. Stanley and Tatano stood frozen, their guns still trained on Alfard. Both men were ready to pull the trigger at the slightest provocation. Just how long had they been there, staring one another down? The passage of time seemed to slow, seconds drawn into hours. Osawa swallowed audibly. Finally, Alfard tossed her gun onto the pavement and held up both hands in surrender. Stanley wasted no time, springing forward to secure her. He gave her a thorough pat-down from behind. He removed a small device that looked like a detonator from one of her pockets. On your knees. Alfard did as she was told. Good. Now hands behind your head. Try anything funny and I will shoot. Without a word, Alfard placed her hands on the back of her head, fingers laced together. Yeah, the 1900 hint, thankfully, was like... It thankfully made me not have to think about everything in the game. Because if I had made this game, it would have involved a choice way further back. It would involve some way of Maria knowing that the real Kanan was safe or something. What are you playing at? Stanley growled disdainfully. Finally realized you can only push your luck so far? She responded with a faint snicker. It's not my policy to resist when things are hopeless. Her tone was detached, her intentions unreadable. Good. I'll make this easy. Stanley kept the barrel of his gun pointed at Alfred's head. This is for my brother. The words hung in his throat, unspoken. A surge of emotion coursed through him. Just a tiny bit more pressure from his index finger, and he could have put a bullet right through Alfred's head. So I think at one point we had every choice except Achi's. Because we had the Tatsuno being like, I don't want to shoot you if I don't have to. We changed that, like, that was the first choice we changed. And then at some point we had Achi on the password. Just as we were just poking around. When we were just poking around. So I feel like we had everyone except Achi. I still don't feel great about Achi or Tatsuno in this part. His long journey would finally reach its conclusion. I know like a big theme of this game is people growing. Like Osawa grew, Kano grew, Achi grew. Like everyone grows as a character, right? Jack, Tatsuno. It is weird that you have to like do all these unrelated choices and that somehow is going to affect Maria. But although he had wished for this moment more than anything, his finger did not move. If he pulled the trigger now, would that truly be the end? His mind reeled at the implications. Tatsuno watched Stanley closely, eventually letting out a tiny sigh of relief. They were in this together after all. Now they just needed to be careful not to let down their guard. He kept one eye on Alfred as he went to pick up the gun she'd discarded. But he was too late. The gun was gone. This is for Kanan. Maria had lunged forward, snatching up the gun. Maria, no, Osawa cried. What are you thinking? She ignored her father, taking aim at Alfred's forehead. Kanan's dead, and you're gonna pay. The smoldering rage she'd fought to hold back blazed up with renewed fury. Maria, Stanley said calmly, put down the gun. He had nothing but words to stop her. There was no telling what Alfred might do if he took the gun off her. If he took his gun off her. What will this accomplish? He asked, keeping his tone as level as possible. Maria's face remained awash with anger. Maria, her father pleaded, please don't do this. Tatsuno took a step forward. Go on, hand me the gun, he said. Stay back. Maria's arms trembled as she aimed the gun. Everyone stood frozen, not even daring to breathe. The slightest wrong move might bring disaster. The silence roared. I don't care, Alfred sneered. If you want to shoot, then shoot. You do want to avenge Kanan, don't you? Yes I do. Maria tightened her grip on the gun. Memories of her friend drifted through her mind. To Maria, born into peace, meeting Kanan had been like touching a world beyond her own, a far more complicated world. Kanan had blood on her hands from the time she was a little girl, a walking contradiction of cruelty and childishness. And yet, she had lived her life according to her own unshakable beliefs. Meeting her had made Maria think hard about her own identity. Like, I feel like this is Maria's choice, and like I feel like we had to have done something that affected Maria. What did it mean to be Japanese? No, that wasn't the question. That's a dumb question, Maria. What did it mean to be Maria Osawa? Now I'm mad at her. That was the crux of it all. They had been able to find common ground, despite differing ideals, because both pressed an unshakable sense of self. So I kind of latched onto this line, unshakable sense of self, and that's why I maybe was thinking about the in-character choices. Maria made her decision. I feel like if we choose B, we're just gonna get the same stuff, right? So I guess I have to pick A now. It'd be funny if she actually killed Alfred, but I doubt she would. Like, that would be great if this gave like a bad end. I like a good bad end. Like a real bad end. Like the baddest end known to man. Maria's anger dissipated like smoke in a sudden wind. The tension seeped from her body, and she carefully lowered the gun. What's the matter? Alphard smirked. Why won't you shoot? Her eyes blazed with contempt for Maria's naivety. I feel bad how much time I wasted on this for all of you. I'm so sorry. No. I'm not being naive, Maria told herself. Do unto others as they have done to you. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. What does this recurring pattern of retribution really accomplish? It's just an endless cycle of hatred. That's why I'm not going to fight. Because I'm not like Kanan. Tears flooded from her eyes. I'm not like Kanan, but people who are different can still be friends. And I'm going to honor a friendship by not taking revenge. I feel bad because, like, now that I know it, I feel like I should have seen it. I felt like when I was making changes and checked the epilogue, I felt like I was getting the hints, and then I felt like I was doing the wrong thing, and I guess I'm bad. No matter what happens, I'm not going to hurt anyone, Maria said. Maybe that's not very realistic, but this is my fight, and I'll fight the way I choose. She wiped away her tears. For the first time, Maria felt that she understood Kanan. If she'd been able to see her just one more time, she would have been able to speak her mind without fear. I could show Kanan the true me, and maybe then we would be friends for real. But that wasn't going to happen. Not anymore. Maria handed the gun to Tatsuno, then looked up at the night sky. Well, Dad's alive. That's good. In the distance, she could faintly hear the sound of police sirens. Not one star could be seen in the sky over Shibuya. I mean, you all were pointing out the choices. I was being dense. I'm sorry. Anyway, here's these assholes. I'm gonna stop. Well, I'll keep reading. A black car of foreign make arrived at the laboratory, pulled up to the curb. Stanley's superior, Gordon, emerged from the back. A few of his men followed and promptly placed Alphard in handcuffs. Well done, Gordon said. Stanley gave him a slight nod. I'll be taking Alphard back to headquarters. You can finish up here. Understood, sir. Gordon shoved Alphard into the back seat and slid in alongside her, and the car drove off. Who was that just now? Tatsuno asked Stanley. My boss. Sorry, but we'll be taking Alphard into custody. You will, huh? Tatsuno frowned, but decided not to press the point. They put a stop to Alphard's plans. And they had saved Maria's life. That was enough for him. Maybe they even began to atone for what he'd done to Hitomi. Kana, Suzune, Kotone. Tatsuno pictured all of their faces. Perhaps in the end, he'd managed to become worthy of their respect. This is new. This Tatsuno thought is new. It's all over. Stanley spoke under his breath. His gaze locked on the car, taking Alphard away. The black cloud that hung over his heart had yet to lift. But he knew that today was the day he could finally put revenge aside. This is also new. No longer would memories of his brother bring only sorrow. This'll do, won't it, Frank? Abruptly, Maria's cell phone rang in Stanley's pocket. So this is the change, right? This is the big change, is Maria is not in the ambulance. With Dad. Maria actually can hear this happening. That's right. I meant to give this back to you. He handed the phone to Maria. I wonder who's calling. Maria picked up. I mean, I only know Osawa as his name, and that's the family name. I knew his first name at one point, but it's kind of like lost to time because we haven't played him in a while. Kenji Osawa. There you go. Thank you, Plombo. She could hardly believe it when she heard the voice on the line. Brusque, yet girlish, with a daredevil ring. A voice that had been burned into her mind since the day she met its owner. No, it can't be. She had been sure she'd never heard that voice. She had been sure she'd never hear that voice again. Sorry, there's a lot of S's. In an instant, Maria's face was damp with tears of joy. Thank goodness. Oh, thank goodness. Kanan. There you go, there's the big drop, 428. I mean, we already solved that, but it's a good shot. Maria couldn't hold back her sobs. The tears kept coming and coming. She had never wept with joy like this in her life. (0002) Achi held his breath. He could no longer feel the seconds ticking by. The numbers on the display were changing more and more slowly, but still he watched in fear. 002. It was impossible not to fixate on the countdown. 002, 0002, 0002. Kano and Achi continued to stare at the timer. 0002. It had stopped. The timer had actually stopped. We did it! Achi dropped to his knees with a cry of triumph. The rest of Shibuya Scramble burst into cheers. You're one reckless guy, you know that? Kano held his hand out. Achi grinned up at him. That makes two of us. I think I already lost Achi voice. The two clasped hands firmly. Their handshake conveying more than any words could have. Achi. Suzuma came rushing over. You did it, man. I knew you could do it. The two bumped fists. It weren't just me, Achi said. Could never have done it without you guys. Help. Suzumu smiled bashfully. Hey, Suzumu, take care of SOS for me. You got it. Suzumu looked him squarely in the eye. Achi gave a little nod and the two solemnly bumped fists again. Suddenly there was a blinding flash. Achi spun around to see Chiaki standing there, beaming happily, her digital camera ready for another shot. Hey everyone, gather up, Minorikawa called out to Achi and his pals. You guys are the heroes of Shibuya. Photo time, everyone, Chiaki said. Get ready. The young men struck a pose together. Wait, her too. Yeah, I liked him the first time. He was just like, what? I guess I'm here. Minorikawa ushered Hitomi over to stand with Achi. Hitomi. Achi flashed through a sheepish grin. It was all thanks to Hitomi that he'd been able to do what he had done. Keeping Shibuya safe. Keeping his promise to Suzune. Hitomi had been his inspiration for it all. There were so many things he wanted to say, but he couldn't get the right words out. Achi, Hitomi's cheeks were damp with tears. Hey now, young lady, Minorikawa called. No crying now. Come on, show us a smile. He struck a goofy pose beside Chiaki. Do you think he's pointing? At last, the smile returned to Hitomi's face. It really is the best. Hitomi looked up at Achi in confusion. Your smile, he said. It's the best. I don't care what anyone else says. He spoke so earnestly that Hitomi couldn't help but smile even more. Like, he's just like trying to leave the scene. Okay, here we go, people. Get your best faces on. At Minorikawa's signal, everyone let out a joyous victory cry. Come on, guys, Suzumi shouted. Let's lift Achi up where everyone can see him. The members of SOS let out another roar. Huh? No, you don't gotta do that, guys. Cut it out. But Achi had already been swallowed by the enthusiastic throng. Heave ho! Heave ho! Heave ho! There in the middle of the scramble, Achi was being hailed as a hero. Kano looked on with a satisfied smile. What they had achieved together was nothing less than a miracle. It had taken a lot of luck and more than a few coincidences for them to stop the bomb. Coincidences? Kano muttered to himself. No, that wasn't right. This was something different altogether. Fate, that's what it was. And not just one person's fate. The destinies of several people had collided, gathering momentum until coincidence became inevitability, and Shibuya was saved. The raucous crowd tossed Achi high into the air again and again. As a plainclothes detective, Kano would probably never be showered with adulation quite like that. Well, that was alright. A detective's duty was to ensure the safety of the people. He didn't put his life on the line so that he could be the hero. Just seeing all those smiles, that was good enough for him. Kano only needed the approval of one person, and that was Rumi. Rumi, I hope she managed to get out of Shibuya okay. Suddenly worried, Kano pulled out his cell phone. There was a whole bunch of things he wanted to tell her. He couldn't share the whole story, police rules wouldn't allow it, but he wanted to let her know as much as he could. That the kidnapping case had been resolved safely, for instance. That he'd learned about the tortured past of the detective he so admired. That his partner was going to pull through. That he'd managed to finally talk to her father. That he put his life on the line to save Shibuya from danger. Rumi would listen quietly to the very end, and then, Kano thought, he knew just what she'd say. Short and sweet, in that gentle voice of hers. Good job. Can I have a good job? Ah, Rumi, hello. There's no response. Did they have a bad connection? Hello? Rumi, are you there? Can you hear me? Look, the case is closed now. If you're still somewhere close to Shibuya, I'd love to see you if I can. This is new. You want to see me, huh? Don't you have a mountain of paperwork you should be doing first? The gruff voice was Shizuo's. Oh, well, you see, Father, I told you not to call me that. Shizuo barked so loudly over the phone that Kano's ear rang. Right, no, of course. And yes, I'll do my job. I just wanted to check and make sure that Rumi was alright. Looks like I misjudged you. Maybe you are the kind of guy who'll blow off work to go meet with a girl. Dad, hey. Kano heard... Oh, that was Rumi. Dad, hey. Kano heard Rumi's voice cry out with exasperation. Come on, let me have my phone. I know that work is important, sir, Kano said hurriedly. But Rumi is even more important to me. He felt his panic rising. After all that had happened, he didn't want Shizuo to end up with a bad impression. Oh, be quiet. If you want to see Rumi, you can do it once you've finished your work. Well, but I'm not sure when that's going to be. I waited on you today a lot longer than I wanted. So at this point, I don't care how long it takes you. We can wait all night if we have to. Shizuo let out a peculiar sigh. And then, you and I can talk about you marrying my daughter. Huh? Before Kano could be sure he heard that right, Shizuo hung up. Huh? What? He stared at his phone, his mind reeling. And then he was hit with a veritable explosion of joy. This is a good jump. Yes! Kano leapt into the air and shouted with delight, his voice echoing through the Shibuya streets. Once the crowd had put Achi back down on his feet, he rushed over to Hitomi. So, Hitomi. Yes? Hitomi, there's so much stuff I want to talk to you about. So many things I want to tell you. He gazed into her face. But, Suzune, he didn't know how to continue. Hitomi smiled warmly. She understood. Go on, Achi. Go see your sister. There's nobody here in trouble that you need to rescue now. Thank you. I better get going then, to see Suzune. Did we even exchange numbers? I don't even know. Achi broke away from his circle of friends and headed out of the Shibuya Scramble. Strangely enough, his leg didn't hurt too much now. Despite all that had happened, he felt invigorated, as if he was just awaking to a brand new day. Achi, Hitomi called after him. I'll see you again, won't I? Achi nodded vigorously. Of course. Just come to Shibuya, you'll find me. I guess she knows where his dad lives. He'd been born and raised in Shibuya, but after today, he loved the place more than ever. I guess I got kind of stuck on the fact that Kano and Achi still had to be continues. Hello, Hikanoa Guild. I'm tired. It's almost 2 a.m. I'm being bad. I got mind melted by how to trigger this proper ending. I got mind blended. So here's the question. I think that last epilogue is Kanan. Do we have enough time to do it? Normally I stream to 2 a.m. We even started early, but we wasted a lot of time struggling to get the good ending. The good news is it's probably not gameplay and I could just, you know, read it. And it might be about as long as the Suzune one, maybe. It could be as short as her, like, surviving Alfred's attack. I assume Alfred tried to attack her at some point. And then her showing up at the end. We'll see. There hasn't been any suplexes, have there? So what I did today was I started porting a bunch of my work for Vignon into Warudo, because I think I like the tracking in Warudo better. For Vignon, I feel like I have to use VC face underneath it and then send the tracking from VC face to Warudo or to Vignon, and it's too much. I don't know if it was a pop driver. I thought she just kind of like threw her off using her like the enemy's weight. So like things might be changing around here. And then at the end of this month, I'm gonna get the new overlay from the artist. Gordon and Alfred sat in the back seat as the car sped along the highway. Here. Gordon tossed the handcuff key onto the seat beside him. What happened down at the Scramble? Alfred asked. What happened down at the Scramble? Picking up the key and unlocking her cuffs. Leland Palmer was arrested by the Japanese police, and the bomb in the attaché case was defused, apparently. It's really interesting that I would have expected if Alfred was was working for the CIA, that they probably wouldn't know about the bomb part. But you know, it's the CIA and they're totally cool with it. Still, Palmer shouldn't pose a problem once we get him into CIA custody. I see. Much obliged. You really got yourself backed into a corner though, didn't you? Gordon said. Yeah. I was only able to accomplish half of what I intended. Half? Alfred produced a vial from her pocket. It was filled with red liquid. Is that Hitomi's blood? Gordon asked. Indeed. I managed to acquire the antiviral. But when? Gordon peered at her in bewilderment. When I blew up the minivan. In the dim light of the vehicle, Alfred's eyes shone darkly, like those of a wounded animal. Extracting the blood from Hitomi while she was unconscious had been a simple matter. Saving the girl's life had been more than just a means of ensuring her trust. Alfred had been looking for the right moment to carry out the extraction. Total secrecy was essential. If it became public knowledge that the drug existed, and that some of it had been stolen, the value of the UA virus would plummet. My primary objective here was to destroy that research facility. Still, getting our hands on the antiviral is better than nothing. Well done as always, Alfred. FMV! There she is! That was Kanan! This is the most FMV the game has been. Executive producer Jito Ishii. Okay, so I need to ask you guys, should we look at the new the new thing? Black bookmark. We were given the black bookmark. Oh shit, it's going into it. You're still thinking about revenge, aren't you? You changed the password. You're betraying the front. Our objective is in the freight car. Betrayal, terrible weapon. Enemies bound by fate. Kanon preview added to bonus content. Well, we still gotta poke at every ending. We could come back to this. If everyone's just a little tired. Yes, so here's the thing I've known this entire time. Is that there is an anime about Kanon. And ever since I knew that, which I knew before I even knew about 428, I knew about the anime. And then I worked backwards into finding out about 428. And then 428 came out in English, and I got reminded eventually when it was on sale that I need to buy it. I kind of figured that the girl that we knew as Kanon in the story was not Kanon. I know that anime has different look. Obviously, like a character in real life might have brown or black hair because they're Japanese. Even though Kanon's not Japanese, but you know, bear with me. But the anime version might have like crazy hair. Like, so I didn't want to like say anything. But in the back of my head, I always had to figure that that wasn't the real Kanon. As for it being like Alphard, that like made like perfect sense. And everything like pieced together really quickly. But it was always something that was scratching the back of my brain. Because I have seen an episode of Kanon. Only an episode. I walked in on someone while they were watching it. And I've seen a clip on YouTube. This is long before this year. So I kind of knew that A, Kanon was alive. And B, that she was anime. So, I guess we'll save this for next time. We'll save this for next weekend. I guess we don't have much to do. I guess we just have this and then poking at bad ends, which is going to be a pain in the ass. I might have to find a guide for that. No, she's anime. I guess I should talk. I've talked about this a little bit, but one of the scenario writers in 428 is Nasu. Nasu of I always forget the name of the studio, but of Tsukihime, Fate Stay Night, Type Moon, yeah. What's the one with Alco? There's one with Alco that's about her that predates it. It predates Tsukihime's stuff. And then there's the one with the girl with the knife, and I can't think of her name either. I know her name's Shiki, but I don't remember what the visual novel's called. But yeah, if Plombo pointed out that in the credits there was a shout out to Type Moon and the special thanks, this is why. Kara no Kyokai. Yeah, I think I watched one of the Kara no Kyokai movies at a friend's house a long time ago. So we'll keep this for later, but after we do this, I don't remember. It had someone that could make like it had like puppets. It had like wooden puppets drawn by string or something. And like her arm got puppetized or something. It's been so long. It was in a long trip. It was a trip to Texas. And I don't remember much more than that. I don't think we were in the right mindset to like process what we were watching. Yeah, there was like a puppet motif going on. All right, so here's the fun announcement, right? Once we get done with Kanan's story, we have to watch the anime. And that will be the next watch party, like, big event thing. There might be a watch party next week that won't be Kanan. We might watch a Jackie Chan film, because I kind of want to play a Jackie Chan game for MSX. We'll figure that out. I'm having trouble sourcing a copy quickly. You know, the garden is lacking in seeds, is what I'm saying, you know? I went to my gardening shed and the seeds were empty. And I wasn't able to grow a Jackie Chan film, but I may make one appear at some point. It might not be the one I'm planning, and it might be Police Story. I want to do Meals on Wheels, aka Spartan X. Well, Wheels on Meals, not Meals on Wheels. Wheels on Meals. And if I can't get that sourced, I own the... I was like thinking, I own Police Story 1 and 2 on Blu-ray. I'd have to figure out a way to show that, which means I have to get my splitter that can bypass PS4's, you know, weird thing. But yeah, if you're in our Discord, which you're welcome to join, !Discord, we'll be doing those watch parties for Kanan and a Jackie Chan film. As for now, I'm going to end the stream. I think when we come back next weekend, we will finish Kanan's story, maybe poke at some bad ends. We have a lot to get through, unfortunately. So I may look at a guide just to speed that up. Because some bad ends you have to trigger with other characters. And that could be hard to, like, piece together the puzzle, right? Anyway. Oh, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for putting up with my dumb... I was dumb. I was very dumb tonight. Yeah, thank you all for watching. I hope you all have a good time with 428. It's almost over. It will almost be over soon. Then we have to watch Kanan. Yeah, everyone have a good night. I'm a little ending a little later than I thought. I started the stream at 8, but then we had like an internet outage, and then we had me being stupid for like an hour, and why are my eyes closed? I need to... I keep saying I'm gonna reconfigure things, but right now I'm using VC Face. I need to actually just configure the Walrodo and then start using Walrodo. What I really need is my friend to give me the iPhone that they promised me so long ago that's broken. Yeah, I think maybe we have the internet solved. Maybe it was that bridge mode. Maybe it was bad and was overheating the modem. Because once I... No, this modem is still really hot. Maybe that's just how the modem is. I don't trust this thing. Like I said, they gave me a modem like 2 months ago, and now I'm having all these issues, and it's overheating, and the internet's not working, and blah, 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 and they ran a new wire. And I don't know. If it starts acting up again, then I'm gonna assume it's the modem, because right now I'm connected directly to the modem. I'm bypassing the router. And they can't say shit about, oh, I think your router is the cause of your issue. No, it's not. No, it's not, and I'll kill you. Anyway, on that note, do I raid MP83? He's playing Woody Poco on FM 77AB. Grit's playing Dodon Patchy. J-Spox is playing Castlevania Portrait of Ruin. We got Lone Fungus. Digital Basic is playing Mario Party by himself. Mr. Radon's playing Record of Lotus War. That's that Dreamcast game. Just to save us, because I think if I raid MP83, I'll probably want to stick around. So I'm gonna raid into Mr. Radon. And I might edit some of the us running around in circles out of the VOD. Just so the YouTube video isn't 6 hours long. It's only gonna be like 5 hours right now, but you know what I mean. And yeah. I should probably start the raid. Listen to Saribot, have a great rest of your day. Don't forget to stay hydrated. And take care of yourself. Don't be an Achi. Don't run into the street and get run over by every car. Good night, everyone.